as I was, 5 minutes. I was doing water sampling on Great Pond.
Oh, yeah.
Here, let me write you an excuse for that one.
I thought it was a good
And he
one.
mentioned you were sampling, so.
The,
Yeah,
I'll
well,
put
it was
in-
supposed to be yesterday, but the weather wasn't permitting, and she was open today, and we said, well, if you can get in before 2.
Where were you sampling, Scott?
Great Pond.
Pond?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, wow.
I said, were you? I mean, I live on that pond.
Well, you know Sandy Baines, I think, maybe?
I heard the name, I
Oh.
don't believe I never saw
She
it.
kind of organizes the ponds, I guess she does, right?
Yep,
Because
she's
you're
the-
doing it
Yep,
also, right?
No, I'm a
Well-
volunteer to her, and
Yeah, I know that,
she's
but
the organizer.
Which pond, you do,
What, Middlesex Schoolhouse,
Minister Schoolhouse, yes.
do that.
And you do the other thing, Salt Pond, with part of the estuary business.
Right, yep, got that coming up, yeah.
You're a
The,
two-banger there.
The,
So am I now.
but we're good guys about that. Okay, welcome. My name is Charles Harris, and I am the chair of the Eastham Water Management Committee. I am calling to order the meeting for May. It's the 9th of May at 2 p.m. And I wanted to remind you all that we are being broadcast live and videotaped for the meeting. My thoughts are that the meeting may not be a long one today, and my thoughts are that Jane will appear and give her briefing. I was thinking that perhaps we could start out by doing the minutes, review minutes from our last 2 meetings. Adele, I have no corrections on them.
Is there anybody who didn't see him?
Is it the same thing? It's 2 different ones?
No.
Should be a March and a April.
March and
I
April.
wasn't here for the April, so I can't. vote on
Okay.
that.
I wasn't here on March, so do you want to take the March?
No, the other way
Well,
around. You
well-
have to approve the, oh, no, you're right, sorry.
There you go.
You got it right.
That may give us a quorum, if you, because then there's only 4 of us.
I don't,
I don't think you need a quorum to approve the
no,
minutes.
you don't.
No.
Actually, there's even, it's unclear what rules the town uses. If you use Robert Rules of Order, you don't even have to have a vote on the minutes.
Oh.
They can be accepted.
Well, you know,
Town's never been clear as to what the rules are that govern these things.
Adele, I found that your notes are a very good warm-up to the thinking of the subjects for the table. So that's why I was thinking we'd go to them. If we want to think.
What's your position on voting on a set of minutes that I was absent for that meeting? I was not at the March 14th.
You earn it. Well, why don't we just do a review? We don't have to do a vote. That, in a way, sort of keeps them from becoming too old to reasonably review. You know, use the mental abilities that we have at our hand.
I mean, April looks fine to me.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't see anybody speaking up about anything that's particularly troubling them. You see you're still reading, so,
Yeah, Yeah, I see, there's 30 pounds, $30 per pound of nitrogen.
Which one are you in, March or
Oh,
April?
March.
Yep.
No, I'm not objecting to anything here, I just was recalling it now. 7/10 to do the same by construction of a treatment plant. I got a similar sort of number for the barrier, BR.
Permeative-
Permeable barrier.
Permeable reactive.
Reactive barrier, PRBs. Yeah, sounds like shellfish are cheap by comparison to anything else,
Yeah, that,
but they may not work. If they work, I mean.
yes, I'm eager to hear any dollar figures you have like that.
I got more questions than answers.
Well,
I got
Useful.
a
Know what the questions
PowerPoint I
are.
can put up on the board when we get to it.
okay, good. Yeah,
Not much of one, but.
So, so, we just feel like we've looked at them and they're acceptable, if not approved, and
Acceptable? Yeah.
I'm just gonna write okay, and today's date, this is 9 May. 2017,
I am gonna turn them into the town clerk as finished.
okay, good. Well, a big item that we have for today is Scott talking about permeable reactive barriers, leading us,
I think it's too big an item.
well, leading us through that discussion. And the rest of the items are, to me, as I've tracked down the information, are not that great in terms of just the amount of time that I would think that we would want to take to think them over. But I would say, Suzanne, are you seeing a date in which you'd be ready to talk about aquaculture?
You can look at it more seriously for June if you'd like.
Okay,
June 13th, wait, maybe not June 13th.
Who's
No, I'm looking at the meeting
dates?
date.
Okay, I should have that on my calendar. It's-
How about July 11th?
sure. No, I mean, it's, we value the time of all of our members, and yes, we can work it in there.
Jeff, you weren't here when we went around about these various topics. Would you be willing to work something up on innovative alternative solutions? Yeah, and you could start, and, there's a whole matrix in the 208 plan that will give you a list of all the things that are out there, and then
It's
do
my
what you think is
understanding that
useful.
Susanna's doing aquaculture.
Yeah.
that's right? And Scott, you're gonna do
PRBs,
PRBs, and you'd like me to look into,
innovative alternative, what's called
to-
IAs,
To septic systems,
yeah.
okay, and that's different than the approaches that,
Yeah, they're different sorts of things. Like Hoyfelder's thing, if it flies, would be an innovative alternative.
That would be like apply to each house individually, most,
Yeah.
whereas these other things are
Well, there are some that
big
are,
projects.
community, or not community-wide, what would you call it?
Neighborhood.
Development-wide, like Bracket Landing as a
Right.
system. But generally, unless you have that sort of thing, where you have a development that you can tie into one system, their individual house
who
things.
can I talk with to get me aimed in the right direction?
I would start by looking at the Cape Cod Commission 208 report and looking on their section on innovative alternative technologies. It'll give you a sense what's there, and
Are there people there that I can speak with?
well, there could be, but I don't think that they would be receptive to somebody just saying, tell me about innovative alternative technologies, because that's why they prepared the plan. So you'll read the plan and see what kind of information
Okay.
you
And you'd like
find
me to
there.
report back to this committee when?
In, well.
It's gonna
we
take
only
you a
ask-
while to
Yeah,
get to speed.
why don't we say June? And if you, after looking at the plan, if you have questions about places to go or resources, you
June
know,
is a
just-
month away. Can you give me a little more
Oh,
time?
this is May, okay. I'm thinking we're still in April, that's because it feels like April.
It does.
Sure, I mean, August is fine, I don't have any deadlines.
And
I
I
was
think
gonna say-
there's a number of technologies, so if you just wanted to pick a few.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm imagining there probably are quite a few.
I think we
There
went
are.
over last meeting, there's like, the state approved 50 of them.
Yes.
So it would just be if like you reviewed reviewed the 50 of them, and came up with like, I don't know if there's like general categories
There
of like,
might be
these all kind
categories.
of like function in this way with like, it's, like the technology's like slightly different, and this one like functions in this way, or just pick a couple.
And these are alternatives to a standard traditional system that's being
Yeah,
employed at.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I could add a little bit to that too, Scott. We have a number of residents on the east side of Route 6, just a little bit north of the Rotary. And it's their septic systems that is putting the nitrate into Town Cove. And we have the larger movement to do something about the nitrate in Town Cove, as we also have it in Salt Pond, and that's all coming from the 208. So if we, the only two ways that I know to deal with those areas would be innovative alternative or sewer. So, but if there's 50 different technologies, we'd say, well, wait a minute now, is there any particular technology that's good for people that are only 200-300 feet from the water's edge type of thing?
Oh, yeah, I guess that would probably be
And
more applicable.
a legal question, Dell, can you require certain property owners, because of their proximity to the estuary, to do certain things, and not Charles and Scott who live?
Brewster probably does.
There are some rules, yeah, about, but it gets confusing, I guess, as to what you mean by require, like, there are rules about, the Conscom has a rule about septic systems and within 100 feet and that sort of thing, but it only applies basically to changes or to new construction because pre-existing houses were grandfathered and so that sort of thing. I guess how you get at it is you can require that they don't have more than a certain flow, and you can use the system, I guess, to change it. I don't know. It's, I don't know.
We
the
all
answers
have a
to
certain
all that.
requirement to meet a certain standard. Every one of us does.
Yeah, but if you live right near a,
But maybe they have a different.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, well, there's a.
and new construction, for sure.
There's a Massachusetts wetlands law that applies to people who have property in the wetlands that abut the water bodies. And that sets specific requirements for them and for their septic disposal and that sort of thing. I don't know, could we mandate that people use IAs? That's a question, I guess, that may have to be faced down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever get in a situation where the town pays for the conversion on an old house?
I don't know. You mean, has Eastham paid for
No,
the?
no, I mean, just in general, does that happen?
I've never heard of it, but, you know.
I mean, there's a program around that provides assistance to people who need to do upgrades on their houses and might not necessarily be able to afford it, but I don't know if it's like a town program.
Oh,
or
that's the
not.
brownfields thing that Mike mentioned last time. But that's basically where people have to repair or replace. And what it is, it's a loan you can get from the state.
Okay.
I don't, I should say, is a loan or a flat payment? In any case, you get some money from the state. I'm not certain it has to be paid back.
Yeah.
I also don't know if it pays the total cost or it,
Yeah.
it alleviates your cost. But that is, it's not just putting it, it's, you have a septic system or whatever you're using, and it's failed, and so it has to be repaired or replaced, and so this is funding for that.
Yeah, there's, I don't know if it's true in Massachusetts, but if you look into the larger nutrient pollution field, there's farmers, if they farm it a particular way, they can generate for themselves a nutrient credit. And then they can sell that nutrient credit to some other party that is in need to show movement in a good direction, need to show compliance. And now that's much more involved in just septics, because there's probably the Natural Resource Conservation Service, Department of Agriculture probably does a certain amount of affirming that all those farming techniques are in place. But if it is taking down 5, 10, 15% of the nitrate that had been getting it from the field into the brook in the past, then, there are things there. And to some extent, we may find ourselves stepping into that particular subject. In other words, holding up our hands to the state and saying, gee whiz, shouldn't there be a program for us with situations like this?
Yeah.
That in some way we can get some help. I don't know if that's coming to us, but I sure enough know we do have houses ringing Town Cove, and we need to be thinking in that direction.
Yeah, but we're only one of 15 Cape towns that are facing this problem. So I don't think we're going to get anything any different than what the state will be prepared to do for any of the other towns. I mean, they've all got problems,
Well, suppose, though, that one of these improved septic systems that I guess would meet the new standards, and you have perhaps 40 houses involved, is that?
Maybe more like 150, 200.
Oh, okay. I say, so in terms of putting in systems versus putting in a septic system for all of those houses, which would, if it turned out that the individual houses were doing them 150 times was cheaper, I'm not sure it would be. I was thinking it was a smaller number, but as opposed to a septic, if the town can avoid putting in a septic system,
you
it
mean
might.
putting a collection system? If the
Well,
town can
collection
avoid putting-
system, and then it has to go to a treatment plant.
Yeah, so you're saying if the town can avoid putting in a collection system?
If they were going to do it, but it was cheaper to have all the houses convert, would the town be willing to help the people convert? I suspect it won't be, but I'm just asking the question.
I mean, I think once we find out what technologies would be applicable in the area, you could come up with a plan that would make it very enticing for people to do. So like you have the option of sewering the town, or we can like make this like collection of alternatives. But I don't know if we're not quite there yet. We're still like, well, how exactly do we want to like approach this problem?
Yes, but I see an opportunity if we can define a couple of courses of action, perhaps each with different costs, and use it as our way of informing the public in Eastham is, well, this is what it comes down to. You could do this, you could do this, you could do this,
Yeah.
type of thing. Any one of them feel like it's more Cape Cod than one of the others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
I came across something the other day, when I was trying to look for some stuff. It's up on the screen now. There's a group in Orleans called Orleans Can, that is working to support the development of a response to the wastewater problem. And they put out meeting summaries on these, OWCRAP, or however you say it, the Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel meetings. They put out meeting summaries, and, which ACOM also does. Theirs is a stripped-down version of ACOM and simplified. And I think they're very useful, actually, as I started reading through them. And so I think as we look at various things, if you want to look at stuff and you're interested, like this has got stuff about shellfish agriculture, the hand count. I didn't see anything about quahogs, which is what you mentioned, Charles, but they are doing one of oysters, but that's to establish mortality and other things. And then they just basically summarize the key points of the meetings, and it is useful information, I think.
Now, okay, so one of them is with Orleans Can, and I think.
It's up on the screen. I can go back to the top, and then you can just copy it off the screen. And
Okay.
there's all the, up there is the URL for it. And when you go to that URL, this is the page it takes you to. And then you go down, and in the introduction, it says, tells you what, it has also links to the videos and other documents on the town site. But, and the first one is click here, and you get their meetings. No, down below is their meeting summaries. And you just click for each one.
Okay. All right. But did you say there was another group doing something similar to it? Or?
Well, ACOM is the group that's basically, AECOM
Oh,
is the
okay,
group that's
so-
basically running the water quality. How do we get
Yeah,
back to there?
right.
The water quality advisory meetings, and so they are doing the official reports.
Right, yeah.
But in some ways, I think these others are maybe somewhat more useful because they're more of a narrative form and,
Yeah, just for the other folks at the table here, when I go to the Water Quality Advisory Panel meetings, they've had them once a month, but they are not planning to have one this month in May. I come away with a copy of their slides, and there's normally about 20 or so. And besides my own written notes, it's 20 slides on 15 different topics is a lot of documentation. I can't keep all of this in my head, but that's basically what I have. I did bring this one today because there was a couple of slides in there that I thought it might be helpful for me to just read to you so you see what's happening there. So, okay.
if I'm correct, Charles, I think all of that stuff is part of what you can get on the groups, not this groups, but the actual Water Quality Advisory Panel groups website.
This one.
Because they have videos of their meetings, and I assume those videos would include all the slides that they show during the meetings.
I would think so, too. But to add to that, the next level down of their water quality advisory panels are their working committees. And the documentation of that is pretty light, as appropriately. I mean, they get into heavy subjects, so it's easy. They don't have to get down every single number that's being tossed around, or date or something like that. Let me see. I have, starting at the top here, I have good news in that we have a person who's been identified by Scott Bumpy as a possibility, and I've left a voicemail for her. There's a second woman who, Jessica Dill, for the Town Search Committee, has set up an appointment for Wally Adams, myself, and her for tomorrow. So that's good news. I'm hoping we can find a few more. We've got nine places. We're down to 5 right now. We need 5 for a quorum, so it's,
Oh, we have 6 if Mike comes.
yeah, 6. Oh, yeah.
Charles, does the town have a basket of possible candidates? I mean, people who have called and said, I'm willing to serve on a committee, and they just put their name in this basket to be pulled out when there are vacancies?
Well, there is a search committee, just like this committee, okay, it's appointed by the Board of Selectmen. And we've come through a period of the retirement of the main driving force on that committee over the last 18 months. So Jessica Dill is the new person, and she is doing a number of initiatives to kind of reinvigorate that. In the past, the search committee has had a open house in this room and advertised it.
So that search committee is in place to help
Yeah.
committees like our own find candidates?
Yes.
Or vacancies,
Yeah.
fill vacancies.
And there's also on the town's homepage, there's a notice about the availability of information if you want to volunteer, and then there's a volunteer application on the website. Yeah, under quick links, they have volunteer application printable. It's probably could be a little bit better, but I think that there may be some work ongoing to make the website a little more informative.
And in addition to that, Adele wrote a piece, and it was published in Cape Cod Times for the Water Committee under Eastham News.
Oh, Cape Cod, yeah.
Cape
the
Cod,
recruitment.
excuse me.
Yeah, I emailed that to everybody on the committee.
Yeah,
I saw that.
I saw that too.
It just went in
yeah.
basically last
It's-
Friday.
Yeah, it's the copy for the next 3 or 4 days that's out. Somewhat in that area, I'm not meaning to avoid it, but we were going to see if there was a better meeting time, you know. I was going to say is that, well, perhaps if we could get through the next 2 possible recruits and not confuse them by giving them the wrong time, that, you know, might be a way of keeping things a little simpler. But just a thought.
What they
Suzanne,
say-
is this a problem for you? Meeting in the afternoon?
Actually, moving into the summer, it's less likely. I'll probably be working evenings more, and then whatever job I do have for the daytime, that boss is very flexible, and I'm just like, second Tuesday of the month, can't do, and he's like, okay, then schedules me around it. One of the reasons I kept that job, because my boss is amazing. So.
Yeah, that is nice.
Is up in Buchanan.
It's actually for the Division of Marine Fisheries, there's a recreational fishing survey. So he's actually works for the Division of Marine Fisheries. So it's fun. Sometimes I'm in P-Town, but
All right. Let's see, Scott, if you have electronic stuff
Yeah.
that needs to get onto a
Do
computer.
you want to take this and plug it into your computer?
What's is that HDMI?
You're asking me.
What's the cable going into it, the black one?
This one?
Yeah, no, well.
This whole thing is Mike's. He's coming to tell us what we're doing.
There we go.
Do you have a computer to,
I've got one with HDMI and one with RGB.
Yeah, we use RGB here.
Oh, okay, that's.
So you want this?
I think the black part going into the white part is what I'm probably looking for.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know which types I put to computers.
That's okay.
We're computer rich.
Well, this one's not mine, it belongs to IBM, but
Oh,
We won't tell.
that's the older one. The newer one's mine. I usually use a second tube anyhow, so.
Yeah. Looks like we have connections, so that's good.
Maybe I gotta sign on.
That's gonna work.
Okay.
Just readjust that. Should be all set.
Okay, so, where's the stuff? All I gotta do is bring my glasses. Maybe I can see over there. It'd be easier than looking at my computer here. I need reading glasses for this. Let's see, it's, I do it on a home, water board.
You have a folder that says PRBs. Is it under that?
Oh, right, yeah. Thank you very much. Whoops, yeah, there it is, okay. Okay, so, this is a work in progress, I'm not, I really didn't even know I was gonna give it today, and I saw you on the, you had me on the agenda.
Yep.
So I decided I'd just show you what I've got so far, which is mostly off the internet. I haven't even started really hitting the 208 plan business that Adele recommended. And a lot of it was, let's see, oh, what's that, there it is. What's that, it's,
you had up sort of a little write-up on the first slide that was up there.
yeah, I was just trying to, most of this stuff is off a website that was, it was in my ULR up at the top here. Cape Cod Green Infrastructure Guide, does that sound, is that?
Yeah,
I think I've heard of that before, yeah.
I think it's the one of the, it's just what they call, well anyhow, most of it's from them. The PRBs have been used to treat chemical contaminants in other parts of the countries, other parts of the country. A lot of times that's industrial contamination. When I went, just typed in PRBs, I got advertisements for one that was talking about diagonal drilling. Oh, sorry. One that was talking about diagonal drilling, the idea that you could drill down sideways underneath the structure without having to move it out of the way from somewhere else. And they'd had a lot of patents, well, 2 patents that they had issued and one in progress, applied for. Another one was a company that was specializing in these trench diggers that went down as much as 125 feet and did the backfill with the reactant as it was, so it's going down across a field and down 125 feet and doing the backfill of whatever they're putting in it. And some of these backfills, there are questions about whether the chemicals you're putting in to do the reaction might not eventually then be a problem, but it turns out that most of this stuff was talking about commercial things, like around a cracking plant or something like that, and then the drawings that show like in the middle of a field, as if that was usually the case. I mean, usually there's no empty spaces around a big chemical plant. But here we're talking about nitrogen and maybe phosphorus. I think the reason phosphorus gets put in is because the when they're trying to treat the nitrogen, it also tends to treat phosphorus to a large degree too, so it's kind of like a serendipitous advantage. And the usual, for nitrogen, the usual reactant is wood chips. They call it, in fancy terms, carbon, source, and microbes. But there's another hitch. If the water going through it is acidic, the usefulness of the wood chips declines with time. And so they talk about adding pH modifier, and I'm guessing that means lime, something to reduce the acidity, so that the wood chips don't die with time. I'm still trying to find answers, especially concerning cost. I think you just said that was your issue too. I think it's because I don't think the numbers are really very good that they have. He quoted, I'm going to show this later on in this thing, average per linear foot. And on the same table, it also has something on the third column called O&M. It seems to be about 10 times higher, and it's had the word annual in front of it. So I think O&M must be operation and maintenance. But I'll show you that. It's very worried about whether that meant per linear foot. And the other thing is the length of the trench and the depth, although in the type of trenches we're talking about here, I do not believe they have to go very deep because they have to intercept the water flow coming in at the near the top when they're coming into estuaries. So my guess is they're 10 feet deep or something, but I don't know. I haven't seen any figures on how deep it is, in spite of the fact that they were quoting an average number per foot linear going sideways. So,
Now, Scott, this is an approach that would protect the estuaries, is that correct, from the nitrogen flowing into them, like, say, Salt Pond?
yeah. So specifically, Salt Pond, the barrier would probably be back closer to about maybe halfway between Salt Pond and the dump, which is the biggest source of it.
Okay, well, it is the landfill.
I mean, it's you
That's-
know,
so-
probably
Oh, no,
all
Scott, the landfill is not the biggest source
of the nitrogen. Oh, okay.
It's basically the
All the-
septic systems.
all the septic
in
systems,
the
yeah.
watershed, and the landfill probably contributes some. It's not, I don't know how much our landfill contributes. The, Charles mentioned at a meeting ago or something that Orleans was having a nitrogen and dioxane issue out of it, but then apparently Orleans had something connected with their landfill called old septic lagoons that are uncapped. And so the nitrogen is coming not from the landfill per se, or some of it may be,
Okay.
but the major source is these septic lagoons. So I wouldn't, without finding out for sure, I wouldn't make any assumptions as to what nitrogen is coming out of our landfill.
Okay, I'll sit corrected on
So,
that.
so for this to be effective, Scott, you need to know the source of the nitrogen, is that correct?
Right.
You have to know where to intercept the plume,
Intercept
yes.
Intercept it, right.
So
Yeah.
And-
when did you come on? A couple months ago? Because Jane showed us like a map of,
The plume coming down there, yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
that was the,
but
that
where
was
we,
the dioxane plume.
no, but it's not the
What?
dioxane plume because she has different like sample like wells set up as to like where, she has like a site
Yeah, but
set out.
those sampling wells are to continue to monitor the dioxane.
Did I completely miss the, like, am I making this up, that she was like, this might be a good site to put in one of these reactive barriers? Because I thought that's what she was discussing, right up like that way, that she was already
She's talking
looking
about
into
putting-
a site.
I don't know, but I know what the only plume I've ever heard discussed is the plume of the dioxane that's coming out of the landfill.
It
And
was
they
in-
do have monitoring wells for that, as well as the wells at the houses. But in addition to that, what she talked about, and it's not, nothing is set, they have to do a study for what they call site determination.
Yeah.
And one of the places they're looking at is just north of Minister Schoolhouse. Because that's where a lot, as it turns out, a lot of the houses that are in the landfill plume are also in the Salt Pond watershed. And so their septic is contributing to the nitrogen in Salt Pond as well, and then Salt Pond flows on to Town Cove. But I just don't recall ever hearing her describe a plume of nitrogen.
Well, no, it wasn't a plume of nitrogen. It was, hey, we're trying to do some site determination as to where
Yeah.
a permeable reactive barrier
Yeah.
would be effective. So I thought that was already like in the works, separate from anything to do with the landfill, just like, hey, we're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
into this
It is, but
specifically for here.
Nothing has been decided.
No, it hasn't been
No.
decided because they don't know if it's like a useful site yet, but I thought the town was looking into it being a good, potentially a appropriate place to put one of these barriers.
Yes, and this morning I learned a little bit more from Jane. Let me see if I can say it this way. I think she did get a grant to hire professionals to begin to consider the concept of PRBs, all right? And I kind of think that she came to the end of that money.
Okay.
Okay, so they did some work that could be sort of supporting of PRBs, but they came to a stopping point. Now, she did also say that the town has a contract with a professional on the subject of PRB, who I believe will be starting work. And I have heard that person speak at meetings in Orleans, and I recognize him as being a good, strong professional in that area. So I would add that to what you just said about, wells and things like that.
Charles, what she said was the town does have a grant of $48,000 to
Yes.
continue to explore PRBs and their placement. And there are 3 contractors involved in that, GHD, who are the people doing these technical memos. This guy Bigley, who's experienced with PRBs in other towns, and also environmental studies and managers will be the hydrologists. So that there is money, and they are moving forward, but I don't know, hearing, and of course, they have results from the prior site research that they did. They did something down right by Salt Pond. And my recollection, what she said was that didn't exactly yield, but I'm not certain because so I'm going on memory, didn't yield. But they had those results, and those results are going to be analyzed and synthesized as the basis for their going forward under this grant to look at, I guess, site placement, feasibility, all the whole package that will go into,
What was that, environmental studies?
and management. They're the people who've been running the landfill stuff.
Yeah, I was just saying,
Environmental studies and management,
And
something.
management
I
is
don't know
one
if
of
they
the-
have another word after that. That's all I wrote down.
Well,
They're the
maybe
group
maybe I
that,
can find it in here.
they're
And
they're
what-
managing the
You-
landfill stuff for us.
you gave 2 other names there before that.
Well, GHD, there are contractors generally
Okay.
on the technical memos and stuff. And Jim Bigley is a private individual, but he's worked on PRBs in other towns.
So maybe we could ask Jane if she comes next time. I'm assuming she's not going to make it today, but we could make a point of getting a update on that at our next
Yeah.
meeting
Y-
on
y-
PRBs in the
No,
town.
I think we're going in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just a question of, we're in a period having started,
Yeah.
and more is coming.
Okay.
Scott, is there a limit to the length of a trench that you can create as a barrier? I mean, are,
Yeah, you mean cost-wise?
well, I mean, I think maybe from an engineering standpoint, is it unlimited how, you could surround the whole salt pond with a barrier, or how would that?
Oh, well, that wouldn't intercept the plume. It wouldn't make any sense to put it away from where the water's coming. You really want to it'd be nice if you had a very tiny plume, like between rocks or something like that,
Right,
where you
right,
could,
right.
that was funneled in, but we don't have that on Cape Cod. I don't know, one of these advertisements showed them going completely around a chemical manufacturing plant. This was a animated cartoon, I'd call it, it was not a real site. They talk a lot more about studies, I guess. The other thing, by the way, is I'm kind of new to this. We've got at least two people here more experienced than me, but
Making sense to me.
well, yeah, I'm trying to come up to your speed, and Adele's speed is where I feel like. Well, here, skipping down to this point here, they were talking about a price, let's see if I can get that enlarged. Oh, wait a second, I can hit F5, that gives me a bigger picture. And maybe, does it F11? No, it doesn't enlarge anymore. Is that readable?
That is-
Ooh, that's what I'm saying. Somehow I shut it off. Come on.
Did we see a 7.5 or a 2.5?
What am I doing here?
So my understanding of PRBs for Town Cove would be, because you have that neighborhood, where are we? Like that way up by the elementary school has a lot of septic tanks, and the watershed drains down into Salt Pond,
right.
potentially more so than like this side of it. And so I think the idea would be to put the barrier where you would catch most of the groundwater coming in. So, I mean, I guess theoretically, if you had the situation to do the entire circumference of a pond, that might be like engineering wise, you could probably do that.
No, but you would.
Scott is saying
Whoa,
put it
whoa, 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 whoa. You only want to catch the groundwater that's up gradient of the pond.
Yes.
You're not looking to catch what's down gradient of the pond, because down gradient of the pond is not flowing in. So
Yep.
there's no reason to surround the whole pond. What you have to catch is from the
Coming in.
area up gradient of the pond, or of the water body, I shouldn't say the pond, because we're
Yeah.
talking about estuaries. But that's true even with our ponds, with our problems with the ponds. It's the up gradient areas that will
Yeah.
have to be focused on to reduce the phosphorus.
In this case, mostly north to south in that part of the town, going towards Salt Pond.
Probably. The water on that side of, I remember this from the drinking water stuff. Route 6 is, I'm certain it wasn't placed there knowing that, but it actually is the sort of dividing line in these whatevers, where how water flows. And the water on the west side of Route 6 flows west to the bay. The water on the east side of Route 6 flows east to the ocean. And in the case, I know from like the well placement, when they were talking about the waters there, the waters in that area tend to flow southeast. So it's not a direct south, it's a southeast type of course
Right.
they take.
That's what I remember from what they were showing us at the time.
And Jane the maps exist of our watersheds, so I don't know, I think I
Yeah.
had a copy at some point, but we can try and find you a copy of like where the watershed is, and then that kind of, because I remember Jane coming in and she had like maps, and we
Yeah,
discussed
we
like which
have a-
ways all of this
Okay,
flowed, and I don't know if you were
I
a
guess this is
member at
part
that
of the-
point.
We have a watershed map in one of our documents. Actually, some of the things we mentioned at the beginning is both the pond action plan that Ecologic produced, and then the plan that this committee produced called the Pond Protection Plan. And the Pond Protection Plan, as I remember, identifies all the ponds in town, and I think it also shows the watershed maps for those areas. But we're sort of off the track, I guess, from
Yeah, sorry.
Scott's presentation.
Yeah, all
Well,
right. So, well, that's okay.
Well, anyhow, so their numbers here, construction cost, PRBs depends on site-specific factors, of course, such as design of the trench or injection. Now, they have something they call digging a trench or doing an injection, but, and I did some drawings of that. It seems to me that the trench is cheaper on one of their scales, but, charts, but I'm not really sure what the advantage of the injection is if the trench is cheaper. I guess it disturbs the surface less. And the type of geological materials, well, we have mostly sand, but the costs are highly variable. Anyhow, so they came down here to the table and they said $750 was an average cost per linear foot. So I guess they must have some sort of average depth, and I don't know what, maybe the average material is sand. Oops. Oh, come on. Keep hitting the wrong thing here and changing my F5. That got small again, didn't it? Okay. Then, you know, the 750, and then they say project cost 1610. I think that's still per linear foot. But the annual, so in other words, I guess the construction is 750, but you pay all the people to do the preparation and the testing and everything. Maybe that's where it comes up to the $1,600 a foot. And then the annual O&M, is that per foot, you think, is $7,500 a year? That doesn't seem possible. I mean, that's just like much too high.
It seems much too high, yeah.
And I would like to know who I'd call up somebody and ask them to
I
explain
will
that chart.
again suggest that before you make a lot of phone calls, there is an incredible amount of information about this in the 208 plan, including a matrix that shows the relative efficiency of different methodologies. It's all, I mean, it may not find all your answers there, but it's a
So
good place to
you think they
work.
would have the same information, they might be better documented than this
Well,
side.
these people, they had a staff of about at least 10 people who spent over a year, the Cape Cod Commission, who spent over a year putting together this 208 update. And they collected an awful lot of information about a lot of things. And I just looked in here and I see their efficiency table in the technology matrix. And I wouldn't be surprised if they also have similar type of documentation about costs. So you might want to look there, and if you don't
Oh, yeah.
find the answers, then, call around. But when you call around, you're only getting answers that are as reliable as the person who's giving you the answer.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a different, it's our training. We're sort of trained to find the answer yourself and make certain you know where you got it from.
Yeah,
Be able to cite somebody to it if you have to.
so Jeff?
This is maybe getting ahead, because we're talking about science here, but when people's drinking water is not at risk, and it won't be now with municipal water, we're talking about having to save the water quality of an estuary here. And that's going to be a hard sell if we just tell people, oh, we want to clean things up. I mean, is this going
Well,
to
I
be
don't think
something
we want to, I
man-
think we've been mandated,
Yeah,
we
we're-
have to.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So the state is going to require this, and
Because the
in
federal
other
government's
words, the
requiring it.
selling idea is not
Or
going to
used
be
to
our
be.
responsibility.
Yeah,
Well-
Adele, my understanding when I came on was that there falls under, was it the Clean Water Act? The Cape is getting essentially like sued for not upholding this, and
So that's
this.
an element of all of this appeal we don't have to
That
worry about.
litigation has been settled
Oh, okay.
by the production of the 208 update. I guess basically I have the notes for the presentation I gave. Maybe I should clean them up a little bit and email them out so that people who didn't hear the presentation at least get that basic level of information.
Adele,
There is a 208 plan update that adopts the total maximum daily load limitations imposed under the Massachusetts Estuary Program. And I believe that the 208 plan mandates that we have to meet those requirements. And Jane thinks that, no, it's the MEP plan that mandates, but whichever mandates them, we are mandated to meet the requirements, to bring our nitrogen levels, our nitrogen input levels, down to the limits set by the total maximum daily load requirements. And there's not a specific time frame for that. There is, in the 208 plan, they talk about having some movement within 5 years. I don't think they expect that this will be accomplished within 5 years. I think the general viewpoint is that to actually meet the stuff completely, we're talking about a 20-year time frame. But certainly with not waiting until year 18 to begin, a 20-year time frame for completion, but taking steps in the interim that will move in that direction.
Adele, have you given me a hard copy of the 208 plan?
I don't think you want.
I can show you where it is.
Jeff, I have
water
in fact
skill a
a
tree.
paper copy. And for a period between 1 month and the next meeting, you could certainly borrow it. Or,
It's online,
Last
it's
thing, it must be a
online.
It's long, oh yeah, I'm
It
sure
is,
it's
but
like a
why-
book.
Do you have a reason for not wanting to read it on the computer?
No, I just
It's
didn't know
online,
where
yeah.
I was gonna
Oh,
find it.
okay,
So,
maybe I should make notes as I do these things.
because
A while ago,
let me just,
I
Jane,
told the committee that,
Oh.
where you could get it. I could
Where in
bring
the-
it up
where
right
in the-
now and you could see it.
Well, just tell me,
Well, I have to bring up the URL.
we're in the middle of Scott's presenting a tutorial on PRB.
Okay.
So,
Tutorial.
and I just said that we
Work in
would
progress.
catch up with your presentation when you arrive.
Sure.
Or whatnot. But since PRB is kind of heavy stuff, why don't we just keep moving on it until
Sure,
till we
absolutely. Sounds good.
are satisfied or are not satisfied?
Okay.
Okay, well, okay, and this thing also, on this article also, they were saying at this point that it's hard to read, but
are my glasses, or are you guys struggling here a little bit?
I am
it's a little
too.
fuzzy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
As the one person without glasses, it's still a little fuzzy.
Okay, well, I'm glad to know that others are struggling too.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like small and.
I mean, the only thing I really was hoping you could see those numbers for the linear foot per. It's clearer on my screen here than it is up there. I'm not really sure why that is, but it's still not, it's still small on the screen. Anyhow, why don't I just go back to the demonstration, the picture, the things they showed, and forget the text, because I think we covered that already. This is Otis Air Force Base, up in the top there, and the two orange teardrops are the two PRBs that they had installed, I think, in 2005. And I assumed, when I first started reading about this, that these were due to, that they were, I heard they dumped gasoline and stuff in there, but the thing, one thing I read later was they're talking about nitrogen. I don't know, it is actually an estuary, was it Aquatic Bay? Waquay, that's it. And this one here is I got it on, I can't read this one, so. Ashuman, yes, there we go. I had to blow it up because they wouldn't, Google doesn't give me the name until I get close enough there. Ashuman Pond, and there's a golf course over here, and I think I saw a photograph of one of the other things about one of the shorelines where they put some of the stuff in, and where they put it in, the bloom was gone the following year, and it wasn't elsewhere, but it was only a short part of it. Is that typically, in other words, but this wasn't really fixing the problem, it was a test to see if it would fix the problem. Is that right?
I don't know a lot about the Ashumet Pond, but that is down gradient of the
base,
Base.
Otis.
But is it septic or is it chemicals?
I believe that they did that for chemicals. They had release from the base hazardous materials, you know, different substances at different times that they were tracking. The project that's on the perimeter of Wacoit Bay was for nitrogen. So they were
Oh,
trying to.
this one down here,
The
then.
one, yeah, and that was, so I'm not sure about the eschewment. But Wacoit Bay was definitely, you know, what they were trying to do is intercept the discharge from the land surface. And, you know, it was a demonstration project, so.
So they didn't completely,
Oh, no, it's just I don't know how long it is, but it's
Yeah.
just it's a short,
so this was
Area.
deemed as successful in that it was eliminating 95% of the nitrogen, but they didn't really say it was cost-effective enough to do the whole thing, did they? And it was technically cost-effective, but it was technically effective, but wasn't cost-effective. I couldn't figure that out.
well, I mean, these were examples, they were piloted to see how effective, in terms of adaptive management, that they would be. And depending on how your water discharges from the freshwater lens into the saltwater, it's all very site-specific. So it's very hard to generalize in terms of, you know, if it worked here, is it gonna work over there? Not necessarily, because it depends on the hydrogeology and velocity and what they call nitrogen flux and all of these specific hydrogeochemical parameters is what you're tracking. And when it gets out, is it nitrified nitrogen? So you might have nitrogen so it's all of these very specific parameters that have to be like the perfect storm for a system to be cost-effective and efficient at the removal process. As I understand it, I am not an expert in these. I know the basics, but I'm.
A lot more than I do.
Well, and I don't know in particular detailed information about Wacoit, but it was not a very deep field. So, you know, again, the cost of installation there wasn't really high. So you can imagine there are different ways to do this, and PRBs have been historically used on hazardous waste sites for decades. This is not new technology there, but the new application with nitrogen to reduce fresh water before it's discharged is, you know, I think it's a new spin on an old remedy.
The old physical, yeah.
Yeah.
But different materials filling in the trench.
Yeah, and so my question here in Eastham is, could we have maybe an opportunity, and the answer's still out there, because I'm just asking a question, I'm not an expert in this field, might we actually have a combined opportunity, because we have a landfill upgradient of a very impaired watershed, and then, you know, we have closer to Salt Pond, maybe another opportunity to intercept where we have the school. That's a pretty high load discharging, but we still have so many more. The investigation needs to be fully vetted, and we're just really on a tabletop basis right now. I met with my little team of consultants, and right now that consists of a couple of hydrogeologists, a licensed site professional, and our sort of our overall planner, the wastewater planner, and they each have their own little tasks to complete and try to synthesize that information together and answer those questions. We kind of targeted the next steps might be the need to install additional monitoring wells. And that gets into tricky business, because if we wanted to install additional monitoring wells, really we would be talking at the edge of Salt Pond. So we'd have to stay on town land. It gets into a big, you know, thing with access. So we're, you know, that's where we are. We're really just, all the balls are up in the air right now, so I can't answer any.
And if you put in one of these barriers, you sort of have to do something. I mean, if it's on town land, but is it likely to be?
Well, you know, with any project, you have a lot of, you have to do a lot of cost-benefit analysis. And a lot of that often involves access. You know, do you own the land? It's easy, it's way, just like our municipal water sites. If you have ownership of the property, you've just crossed that obstacle off the list of things you have to deal with. So, you know, we're really in the infancy of our discussion, and I'm really not the expert to talk to you when we're at a further point down the road. The point person for the PRBs is MT Environmental Jim Begley. He's working with the towns of Falmouth and Orleans, as well as I'm sure he's working elsewhere. So he can give us, he has the history of what's working in those other sites. You know, he's going to be drawing from that, and hopefully they're working out all the, you know, they're running into some problems for sure. You know, there'll be successes and failures from his work, which I think hopefully we benefit from. So, but right now, we're just really at a very preliminary,
Do we know if we're getting nitrogen out of the landfill?
well, what we started to do is we have 4 permanent multivariate monitoring wells, and we just started adding nitrogen series to the,
Okay, those
to
are the
the
ones that
test.
were for dioxane originally?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So
And you've
we-
added nitrogen to those?
a whole nitrogen series, which aren't typically, you know, we would test monitoring wells at the landfill for nitrogen based on the schedule, and, but the whole entire expanded series, not really. So that was what the team, one of the objectives of our last meeting, I didn't bring my meeting notes or anything, but, you know, we all agreed on what parameters we would be testing additionally for, because that's going to give us some more understanding. And the hydrogeologist can talk to you about this nitrogen flux stuff, which gets it, because they have to figure out the velocity, and there's a lot of different, very detailed chemical parameters that they have to identify, and that's what's the basis of decision-making, and we're not there yet.
So you were just in the, like, looking at, would this be applicable, and how applicable would this be for helping reduce nitrogen in Salt Pond? That's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, we got a grant to further investigate. We have some initial character identification done. We have some of the very, very basic preliminary science done there, enough so that it warranted, let's go to the next step. So the next step is expanding that net, and what I got the funding for was because we sort of have a situation which can be mirrored in other communities. So if this is successful here, other towns can kind of take what we learned and utilize it. Orleans is actually further ahead of us, but, you know, landfills are a problem everywhere. And so that is, it kind of just kick-started, you know, the next step in the project. And the EPA, that they've awarded grants under, it's called the SNAP program, and it was sponsored by a Rhode Island senator, and we do not fall into that jurisdiction, so we can't apply for those grants, but, because we actually discharged to the Gulf of Maine. Because I submitted the project anyway, because it was such a good one, they actually are very interested in our findings, because it is a confined watershed. It has all of the aspects of what they think would fall into the category of having this non-traditional approach work here. So they think, you know, we really have a good place. It's a good location to try this out. They just can't fund us, so.
Speaking of Orleans, one of my, two down here is the place, town, this is the bottom of Town Cove. And the same source indicated, the spot looked like it was right under the Sunoco gas station, which I think was probably just an approximate, but somewhere in between here, between the center of the town, I guess, is where they think the pollution's from.
I know they put in a PRB with injection wells in the vicinity of the school,
Yeah, near the ball
Yeah.
field, right?
near the ball field.
Scott, yeah, right there where your hand is right now.
Yeah.
Okay, no, right there, that's the school.
Right.
Okay, now to the south of the school is that large,
It's in the parking lot.
it's in the large parking lot?
It's supposed to be a proposal, not a.
I
something
don't know
other.
about that one. I know they have a lot of different demonstration projects ongoing. I don't know if they have more than one. The one I have some knowledge about is the one that's in the parking lot on the other side of the middle school. We're across from the police station. What is that road there at the
Yeah,
settlements?
yeah, the one that goes
I couldn't
across,
get that.
changes its name. I know the one you mean.
Okay, that's where it is, and it's pretty indiscreet, and Jim Begley, at a conference, not long ago, I actually had to leave in the middle of his presentation. Were you there, Charles? He showed some pictures of, what was above ground and how they brought in, the equipment to install the wells and, yeah.
Just for Scott's benefit, I've been to the Orleans meetings when they're talking
Yeah,
about this. Okay, so-
yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't get to that one you told me about a month ago, because I was on my way to France at the time.
Yeah, that was, okay, pardon me. What I was gonna say is that, they have a big parking lot down here, and they're using the term Eldridge Park.
That's the
The
name of the
Eldridge
road.
Parkway is the
Yeah.
name of the
Eldridge,
road.
yeah,
right.
that's it.
Okay, so that's down here. Now,
Mike Dennis is on that.
landfill
It would pull me up.
is further in this direction, and the plume is coming from the landfill under the Eldridge Park parking lot, and it keeps on going. Basically, it looks like it's shortest distance to the water, so it's kind of sliding off a little bit in this direction.
Okay,
But,
that's to the other side, 28.
yeah, and my thoughts are, well, that's nice because that the watershed over here is discharging this way, and then, and this is a mass of land over here, so basically the groundwater flow has to come out someplace here, and they're pretty comfortable in their line of wells perpendicular to the flow of the groundwater.
Okay.
And they've also discovered that they have 1,4-dioxane, so not to feel unique. Here it is, Tim.
Okay, well, the last other two things I copied out here was this, these are probably pretty simplistic, but the top one's a simple trench, and the other one's created by injecting wells. But when they give the cost per kilogram, this says $2.79 for a injection well and $1.59 for a trench, and that's supposed to be dollars per pound, or per kilogram of nitrate. I don't know what that means, but, and then, this was, their a regular diagram, but then they also had a video, and there was a thing in the video that I couldn't find a good copy of, so I just did a screen copy of something in the video, which was showing injection wells overlapping each other to create the equivalent of a trench.
So I have a question that I've been wondering.
that was
So
it.
you have the trench or you have the injection well, and the way that the barrier works is that you have the nitrogen comes along, it interacts with the barrier, with the carbon in it, so on and so forth, but it's wood chips. And so then you have to replace the wood chips, is that the maintenance cost? Or like you'd have to put in more oil at some point? Because it's not just like you inject like this source of carbon and it just like, I don't know, is my understanding of chemistry here wrong or like?
Well, I'll tell you what my sensing of it is that the wood chips do hold up for a long period of time.
Okay,
And
If it's not too acidic.
if it's not too acidic, yeah, you've added that to it. And in some areas, they've used a machine to make a trench in the earth that goes down, I think, I'm talking 25 feet or so.
It depends on your watershed.
Yeah, but those are massive kind of excavation machines.
yeah,
Okay, so they cut the trench and they put the wood chips in.
yeah.
And they essentially say, okay, we think we're doing a good thing and we can wait for it. And my reference is some of the old Army ammunition plants out in the Midwest, out in Colorado, where the nitrate from making explosives from World War II has been moving slowly as to go off the ammunition plant. And it's very reasonable for them to say, let's try a big trench and let's try a bunch of wood chips.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we've been wrong for the last 40, 50 years now, and it might just show that, you know, a few $1,000s gives us an acceptable answer.
Okay,
Now, in other places, they're saying, okay, the carbon source is the emulsified vegetable oil.
okay,
Same thinking, but, and to me, they could check to see if the concentration of the oil is up where they would like to have it. And if it doesn't, they can put more oil down there. And I thought I heard them say that they could actually take a big piece of equipment and force a hollow tube down to where they want it if it's nice and sandy, push the salad oil down into it and say, we've done it. Let's check it again in 5 years to see if it's still working for us. That's the sense I'm getting out of this.
I can add to that, too.
Can you?
Yeah.
In terms of your question, the form of the nitrogen intercepting the barrier has to be nitrified, meaning it has to have oxygen in it.
Yeah.
So if you have nitrogen that's in the form of ammonia or nitrite,
okay,
it's not going to work. So
Okay.
yeah, that's why you have to have all these, the perfect storm. So
okay.
and it is a chemical process where the nitrate intercepts the carbon source, and basically the chemical endpoint is it gets released as nitrogen gas. So it's taken out of your water column. It's gone because it's gone through a chemical process through this treatment. And so how do you do this, and how have they done this historically at, actually, this guy, Jim Bigley, he used to work for DEP, and he was at Otis. And so I think maybe that's where his original experience occurred, and then now he's expanded in, whatever the projects are now these days. But so it's basically the same chemical process, and so that's why we're adding the nitrogen series, because it's not just important, is there nitrogen there, total nitrogen, you need to know what form it's in, to make this work,
okay.
to benefit us. So if it's not nitrified, it's not gonna work.
Okay. But at some point along the line, your source of carbon would run out and you'd have to replace it?
Yeah, you would think, and so I would say, yeah, eventually it's gonna run out, but when you look at underwater, and this is a very simple way of thinking, but this is how it's sort of stuck with me, is when you see wood underwater, you know how it's there?
Oh, yeah.
And if it lasts for a really long time. Well, it just does. So we have a Nitrex system at Brackett Landing, and that was the very first question I asked. Well, if we do this, we have a nitrifier that's in front, so we know we nitrify the waste, and then we have this carbon source, the wood. How long is it gonna take before we have to take all that wood out? It's been functioning without a problem, and there's very little decay. It has to eventually decompose, but it's a very slow process when you don't have,
How long has it been up, Jane?
let's see, Brackett Landing's been
It's been there a long
a
time.
long
in my
time.
memory,
I'm,
But
I'm guessing, Adele, I don't know, it's more than 10 years, right?
well, it was up before we moved here, so, permanently. And we've been here almost 9 years now. so.
Okay, so it's more than 10 years. And there's another one, there are two systems that were piloted by P.O. Lombardo at the same time. One was here in Eastham, but the first one was in Mashpee. So I went down there, and I think they've really improved the process, but they have, their two tag team system is different than what we have here, but the bottom line is they're both working really well. I'm sure there's a much better definitive answer.
No,
but
that
I
answered my
guess
question.
Yeah,
Like, it was a very simple, just like, wouldn't you have to replace the thing?
yeah,
And
you
so
would.
Eventually, so the answer is eventually, it's not like a short time, like, oh, we have to replace the wood chips every year or something like that,
No,
so, yeah.
no,
that
it
answers
does
it.
last for a long time.
Sweet.
But, in making the decision process too, you have to think about land ownership, you have to think about land disruption. So this approach is less disruptive because you're not digging a huge trench.
Yeah.
What I'm sensing is this is an ideal system where you have a specific point of contamination.
And it's
i.e. of
targeted,
odors.
yeah, it's targeted.
Yes.
And you don't have to go down too deep to intercept it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what we're dealing at Salt Pond with is probably multiple sources from septic systems, right?
Yep.
So one has to ask the question then, can you attack the individual sources, multiple sources?
Is it concentrated enough to result in, can you intercept it? Is the concentration, that's where they go with this nitrogen flux and all of these like science characteristics. The concentration from a non-point source and where it discharges, can you capture it? How much, cost benefit? But it is a confined watershed. When you look at the groundwater lens and the way the groundwater moves there.
And then the other question is, okay, nitrogen's gotten into the estuary. Can you attack the nitrogen in the estuary, i.e. with oysters or something?
To be continued.
Right,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
if you
That's-
lock onto one technology and one way of thinking, you might be missing the big
So I think that's what
mother lode.
we're attempting to do, is to look at, like, to reduce nitrogen coming out of our septics, which could be from what your topic is gonna be on. Once it's already in the in the groundwater, you could put up a barrier, and then what do you do about the fact that it's already in the estuary would be the aquaculture. So instead of, this is the like multifaceted approach, instead of just sewering and being like, well, we sewered it, that took care of our problem. We're kind of looking at, you'd probably need all of them, or combination.
Well, the danger is you close your mind to something, that's, you have to keep just,
I actually like your terminology there. We'd met this morning talking about a newsletter that was way too technical, and we're gonna try to make it a much better work product. But I've been calling it an integrated nitrogen management plan, because that's kind of the language out there. But I think I like multifaceted. I think I like that, because it makes, it really, people say integrated nutrient management, like what is that? I like that multifaceted, because I keep talking about it as a puzzle piece, because we don't have the simple, tried and true answer is sewering. Remove the wastewater to a wastewater treatment plant. Well, that's not on the table. So what do we do in the meantime and make improvements and, you know, stormwater, all the things you're talking about, and multifaceted. I like that. I like that.
And
That's
there are other technologies, that once it's in the water, that we're not looking at for various reasons. There's something called constructed floating wetlands, and there are other types of things like that that it's been looked at, and one reason or another, don't get enough bang for the buck.
I like that. multifaceted.
You know,
I'm gonna
one thing I
remember that.
wanted to add on to what Jeff just said. To me, it's important to understand that the water at the edge of the pond, the groundwater, say you've got a slope of land, and you've got the groundwater coming into it, and the pond's right here. Well, the first, say, 10 feet of depth right there at the edge of the pond is getting the top of the groundwater flow back from the land. And another way of saying it is, if you go way up the hill, and maybe the top of the hill is a mile away, the rain that falls there, that drop of water actually makes a grand loop way down, way under, and way out into the ocean. I've tried to think about a way of describing this, but it's almost sort of the way your hair grows. You know, the hair that grows here, and if you have long hair, is going down, but this hair is actually on the top. And that basically is a way of saying, well, that's the water that you want to get to, because you go down 10, 15 feet, the expectation is that the nitrate level starts to drop off, because it's water that's come further away that hasn't come through septic systems that have been up on the surface. I suppose I could draw a picture of that someday, but
It's even, you know, it's just kind of going back to our notes. And more complicating to a pond, a freshwater pond, though, is there's tidal influence, too, in Salt Pond. So that's another factor that it has to be considered in terms of determining flux. So, you know, that's another piece of the problem for these hydrogeologists to figure out. And I guess I guess it's about 3 foot, a 3-foot tidal influence there. So, you know, what we put on the table as next steps in our plan was, I kind of mentioned this this morning to our work group, meeting with the Cape Cod National Seashore is pivotal in terms of moving these projects forward. We tried very, very hard, unsuccessfully, to get them to come to our work session with the consultants, so they were just really busy. This is just a crunch time for them, and they're in transition, so they just were, they were very supportive but unable to come. So we put that at the top of our need to communicate list. And then we talked about additional multi-level monitoring wells, maybe at the base of Salt Pond. And they talked about different technologies that they'd use. And then we also want to be able to monitor the effluent discharge from the Salt Pond Visitor Center's septic system. And so they might want to put in a monitoring well downgrading of that, but again, we'd need cooperation from the seashore. And I think that was it. So,
yeah.
but,
I don't know whether I said this at the previous meeting. There may be some good luck in the fact that it's a straight line from the landfill down through Minister Schoolhouse Pond, down to Salt Pond. It could very well be that in our sampling of the wells on that line of march, we may find some things to take advantage of.
overlap.
Whatever
Right.
they might be. And I'm also alerted to the fact that people tell me there were sewage lagoons at our landfill before it was closed. And the folks down in Orleans are finding that their lagoons below their landfill are a noticeable source of nitrogen. And I feel good about that because, you know, gee whiz, if you can put your finger on where the problem is, then that's one step in solving it. Well, do we come to the end of PRBs for the time, or you've got more?
No, that was it.
The,
Turn this to,
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, that's good.
I can, let me just kind of jump
such
around.
as it was.
That's okay. He took the little white thing anyways, doesn't make any difference.
Oh, he took it.
Yeah, I don't need it, I assume at this point.
Okay, let me just, okay, one of the things that I'll just kind of mention it for what it is. I think that we need to be thinking hard about not only Salt Pond, because that is obviously the place to start our efforts, but we need to be thinking about the houses that are on that east side of Route 6, about a mile or so north of the Rotary. And the watershed divide is only a little bit, or actually it's on, pretty well on Route 6 to start at the Rotary, and it only is a little bit further over as far as Depot Pond by the time you get up into North Eastham. Two thoughts you have there. Well, what can you do about those septic systems? And, well, the answer is, well, you could sewer them, or you could put in some IA, or you could, in fact, put in some sort of a cluster. I guess, I think it's very smart to go forward on Salt Pond. And I think that if nothing really serious happened for the area that I just mentioned over the next 5 years, that state regulators would look at Eastham and say, they're performing, they're doing what they can. They're focused in on Salt Pond, and it may in fact be not responsible to try and think of them doing both Salt Pond and the south area at the same time, because humans can only take so much planning and moving things around before they start making mistakes. But I guess I said that before, Jeff, any of the innovative alternative technologies that you come up with would be things to stop and think about for that part of the area east of Route 6. And maybe there's all of those areas are downhill from Route 6. And so in engineering terms, whatever you'd be collecting in a sewer collection system has to flow downhill to a pump station and then get pumped up to the main sewer line, which would probably be under Route 6. And that might not, I mean, having a number of pump stations, 3, 4 of them, you know, every 1,000 feet, collecting all of that sewage as it comes downhill, would significantly lower the value of that area, because who wants a pump station that close to where you're living? And someone would end up living there fairly close. Now, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, and I don't know how to kind of test different feasibilities to see if they make sense, but it's it would be nice if we could find something that helps us in that situation. And the reason I say the houses on the east side of the road is because they're the closest to the water's edge. The houses that are further back, a little bit over on the west side of Route 6, well, you know, I mean, they've got 1,000, 1,500 feet of horizontal travel of groundwater, with the nitrate in it. And you might say, well, gee whiz, maybe there'll be some help that will come to us in that area, and we will find that by the time that we get actually over to the edge of the water, their contribution has been attenuated enough by other factors that are going on there. Okay. I can tell you that Jane, one of the items in the minutes that we talked about was that any news from the DPW on Park Street's drain?
Yeah, actually, Neil has a plan. I just got an email from him, and I think that's moving ahead.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay. Let me see, I guess some of us know that. The training for the water quality sampling has occurred, and the samplers have gone out. Sandy Bain is the leader.
No, let me clarify on
Okay,
that.
yep.
The training that we just did recently, last week, was for pond sampling.
Right.
Right.
Pond, not MEP. So we have a new training schedule, a different training schedule that we're going to be conducting for the saltwater samplers. The protocols are a little bit different. And we have, it's a much more rigid schedule where the water samples have to be collected at certain tides and timeframes. And then as a region, we're all collectively, as you all know,
Yeah.
are working to consolidate all the samples going up to SMAS. Chatham, once again this year, has offered to drive those samples. So I have the schedules. I was just going to email everybody out. I know that Adele already got one. So, so the Lewises had done 2 sites for us last
Lewis,
year.
Sandy.
Oh, really? I didn't know you were on there
And
too.
also.
And
also-
Sandy.
And Sandy, 4 of
Oh,
us.
you had a full
We're
boat.
doing 2 sites.
Yeah.
And it's a big
So-
enough boat.
Oh, right. So, are you guys on board for this year? In
Oh, except there's
July,
one.
July, I heard.
Did Francis send you a,
Sandy told me this morning, you guys,
we got a problem on the 27th, I think.
okay, the 27th. All right, so I'll look for,
We're going to New Hampshire.
okay, perfect. All right, so if you can
There
attend.
5 again?
Yeah,
five,
there's 5 dates and times. I already put this on our website, so if you lose it, it's on our website.
I didn't look. What are the dates in July? The beginning or the end?
July 13th?
Oh, that's fine, okay.
July
I can't do
27th.
anything the first week of July.
Okay, so it's on our website, it should be up already. We also posted, Carolyn Kennedy from Orleans suggested that we reuse a public service announcement that we did last year and put it on cable TV. And so Mike edited the dates, so that too, hopefully will recruit some people. If you know of anybody,
What can you do for that week, that?
When you're
what I'm
not
missing?
there?
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to figure it out.
you need someone with a boat.
I'll need somebody with a boat.
You mean we can't just borrow your boat?
Oh, yeah, sure you can. You're going to be here, right?
I don't want to be responsible for your
I'll go if you
boat.
can drive the boat.
You need to find someone who.
I'd be willing to go on board the boat.
That's what everybody else says.
And where do you get the training to do this?
We see the training dates are on the back. So if you're a brand-new sampler and you want to come, the session for you is the longer one, and that's going to be June 29th from 4:30 to 6:30, and it's going to be in Chatham. I tried to get them to come to Eastham, but they came last year, so, and they have more volunteers, they have more stations. So that's the training, 4:30 to 6:30. You'll have a hands-on demonstration of how to use the equipment, the protocols. We're trying to get everything, like, documented in terms of the training protocols for the freshwater and for the saltwater. So, and then for people that have done this last year, if you already went to the pond refresher,
Well, Scott, you were on Great Pond today, correct?
Yeah, that's
I mean, I
different, that's
live on
pond.
Great Pond. Isn't
that's
that
pond.
Oh.
natural? I could just learn to do that? I mean, I got kayaks, I can go on.
Yeah, well,
I need a
it's,
big boat.
Well,
no, we used a rowboat. We don't take the big boat on Great Pond. It's 115 horsepower. I think you got a 50 horsepower limit, right?
they might
They're
notice.
power boats.
But I used a rowboat today, and it was fine. The sampling site, you know where the little launch place is on the
Yeah,
beach?
on the east end.
We just put the buoy out. That was part of why I was late getting here today. About 50
You put
yards.
the buoy out?
We had to.
I thought Natural Resources was gonna do that.
You mean Mike O'Connor?
Yeah.
He told us to do it.
That's how
We
he
knew
took
where-
care of the
yeah,
job.
Sandy knew where it was supposed to
He
go.
delegated. A good skill.
Well, Sandy knew where it was supposed to go, so we put it out. Piece of concrete and the buoy and the whole 43-foot line, because the water is 38 feet deep.
And now the whole town knows.
Okay. Yeah, so these saltwater trainings are part of, because these are volunteers, the MEP data, this is all going to be part of sampling data that goes into the Massachusetts Estuary Program recalibration model.
But this is not training for freshwater.
No, it's just saltwater.
Saltwater.
This is
For the
saltwater.
estuary.
Would you like to volunteer for freshwater
Well,
or
I mean, I'm just thinking
saltwater?
it's natural. I mean,
Well, he lives on Great Pond, is what he said.
Oh, you live on Gray Pond?
yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm saying that natural. He
But
has to
is
haul a
it-
boat over there and.
Well, you gotta get the boat in the water. It's a rowboat. It is two samplings. One was the one we did today, and the other one is in September.
Oh, it's not a big deal.
No,
It's not a big deal.
And you don't have to be exact time like you
yeah,
do
see,
on
the
this.
the ponds is more flexible.
I see. Okay. Well, I have a
Ponds,
lot to learn.
yeah, so ponds, the protocol's a little bit different, and it's more flexible, and it's only twice a year.
But it was a lot of the samplings going down. We had to do the temperature at 11, it's 11 height, 11, yeah, every meter, and the first half meter, down to 10 meters, right? And the water's 11 meters deep.
Yeah, so it's different, that's why there were different trainings.
Okay.
So if we can convince you to do the estuaries program, this is more,
Requires a lot more people.
yeah, this is more time-consuming, and it's dictated by the tide.
Well, I may,
Okay.
Yeah.
But Bob Duncanson is like the, in terms of the MEP training that we're gonna do, he's been organizing volunteers for 10 years and doing testing in Pleasant Bay. He's the health director in Chatham.
and you can do this with a kayak? You don't need a power boat or?
It depends on whether it's shallow or deep water.
Yeah, like two of our locations are like 3 feet deep. So those have been done with kayaks, but where the Lewises have been going is deep. And Salt Pond's very deep, but we have a natural resources boat that took that team out. And that's a little tricky because Salt Pond gets anoxic, so there's another test you have to do. No oxygen, anoxic, it's depleted of oxygen on the bottom. So if that happens, you have to do another test, which Charles is an expert at now.
You should come to the training. You can learn more.
The training is interesting, and it gives you the overview of the entire program. And if you're new, I think it gives you, if you do the saltwater training.
Thursday, June 29.
Yeah. Okay. And then for people that are just returning, the protocol requires people being trained and refreshed. That's why all people who participate have to go to a refresher. And that's that's the deal. Last year, we had an extra session.
Jeff, on the estuary ones, what they're trying to do is they want to make sure they got mid-tide on the way out. So that's why they have to do it very carefully, because they want to make sure they're measuring the water coming out of the land, so it's tricky, and the pond is just sitting there.
Ponds are easy, yeah.
And did I send to you all the report that Liz Moran just did for us on, and she summarized the results on Salt Pond?
I received it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think-
I didn't look at it.
That was
I
very
received it.
interesting. So it took all the data from many years past and added it to last year's sampling, and she put together a trend analysis focused on that water body. But in terms of the review of the MEP data as a collected whole for Nauset Estuary, I'm sure that will probably wait until the end of the 3-year cycle. But, so those are the training opportunities, and I'll be sending out emails and reminders, and, so our transport of those samples is, for the saltwater, is just down to Chatham. So Adele helped out last year with transporting a couple of times, and like I said, Chatham, they took, they did us all a great service by bringing all those samples up to Dartmouth. So that was great.
Dartmouth?
Yeah, UMass Dartmouth,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
the School of Marine and Science Technology, Applied Science
where
Technology.
is it? Look
It's in Dartmouth,
Dartmouth.
Dartmouth,
Dar-
Math.
The other side of New Bedford, just west of New
Yeah,
Bedford.
so that really saved us a
You
lot.
said Dartmouth first, I thought you were talking about New Hampshire. I said, what?
Oh. Yeah, so that was good, and it really worked really well, because they have to go through a whole chain of custody, because this is all part of a scientific investigation and all of that, but, and,
Person who handles it has to sign off. But you know that.
Yeah, but, I mean, the quality of the data is very good,
Yeah,
you know,
because of that.
because of that. you
Yes.
right,
So I'm not too sure what topic we're on, but something that I've noted throughout this entire
ahead, go ahead.
Meeting and with the potential of new members is, and maybe we have this somewhere, but like a quick, here, welcome to the committee. This is like,
We started it and
We
didn't get it finished, but you're right, we should.
and I just made some notes of just like our 2 sampling programs, why we do that. You mentioned, why exactly are we discussing the water quality of the estuary and how that got mandated? That came up of like, wait, why are we actually doing this? Also, general hydrology and watershed of the town, I think would be
Right.
general
I have
background
just
knowledge. And
Sent to
then,
each of you a map of pond watersheds and a map of the estuary
Okay.
watersheds. I don't think I've ever seen anything that's an overlay, the estuaries and the pond watersheds together. You think on it, but I don't think I've ever seen that. But we certainly can put together a maps
just-
of all the of the 2 separate watersheds.
yeah, just like an incoming and like short, like not the like, and here are all of the 50 million documents that we've had access to over the past 2 years, just a quick like,
Well, I think there are a couple of things of it. You should read.
just like
and-
1 page even,
You're
and some maps.
You're saying have that to give to a prospective.
Yeah, because we started talking about things and he seemed to, like, we've gone over these things like months ago. And I was like, oh, wait, this is a lot of like background information that I realized that you were catching up on, that we should have probably caught you up on, like, beforehand, like a little summary of like,
We could summarize to some extent, but, I mean, there does have to be a willingness on the part of people who join the committee to read.
Yeah.
The information, a whole lot of it can't be communicated in 2 pages. And as I said, one of the things we mentioned at the beginning, and certainly would go on this list, is the pond protection plan that the committee prepared, working off of the final pond action plan. And I think anybody who's on the committee should read that and should try to digest that information. because it gives you a good overview of what the issues are with each of the ponds and what the recommendations were at that time for how to deal with it. And it's an ongoing matter because now we're working with Minister Schoolhouse, and in fact, following a slightly different approach than what was in the Pond Action Plan. We could come up with a list of documents and that sort of thing, and a summary of some things, but then there also has to be a commitment to finding the time to read some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Admittedly, we had the luxury of reading it one at a time, but we did have to read it at the time they came out. We even read, and I'm not asking people to read that, the original Pond Action Plan, which was a lot longer and a lot more scientific. And I have read parts of the 208 plan. I don't claim to have read it all, but I've read the parts that I thought are most relevant to what I'm doing, and I wouldn't attempt to summarize that for anybody.
Well, no, not a summary, but just like, because you mentioned the 208 plan, and I know when I first got here, I was just like, I have no idea what this is or why it exists. So even just a quick, this is what the 208 plan is, this is why we have it, and like, you should probably look into, like, you should probably reference it if you have some outstanding questions. Just like really basic, like alphabet soup of like, just start talking about PRBs, like one word sentence, or like here are all of the documents that might be like relevant. I don't know, you've just mentioned a lot of different documents and I'm like, that's
Okay.
just like an intro, just like a.
Yeah. I was very much impressed with the summary that you read in last month's meeting.
Yeah, I have to clean that up a little bit, because those were my notes. I have to
I
make
know.
it more intelligible.
It's beautiful, though. I mean,
Yeah,
I
well,
know of
I've
any-
looked at it the other day to see if I could, it's not much, but I just got to do a little, make some things into sentences that are not sentences now, things like that. Which are, basically, it just takes people from, they started noticing the degradation in the 1990s, and then along came the MEP and what the town did in 2009.
Well,
That I can
Adele,
do
if
that,
you,
yeah.
if you want to sort of craft that into a brochure, we have some funding available for publication, that money that was donated by nonprofit fundraising, and I have some money. So if you want to put the words together, I'm very good at the picture part.
This is long, though, I think it's
Well,
probably
I mean,
more.
so just to keep it in your mind.
Yeah, okay.
In
I'll start
terms
with
of,
what I have and then see
you
if I
know,
can work to something else.
and,
yeah.
you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, okay? Do not despair. Not everyone majored in hydrogeology.
Yeah.
And you're not born with the knowledge. So it's, are you interested in these topics? And it's ever going on, and there's never an end point to learning. And so just, I would just say, I think it's a great idea. You want to start with the basics of,
Yeah.
you're living in a peninsula that you're sitting on top of fresh water. That, to some people, is kind of blows their mind. They don't even understand that. So if you start with that, that type of maybe one-pager, then, it's a process. And you certainly want to encourage, at least, I'm not speaking for you as a committee, but I always think you get a really good, you get best ideas when you combine people of all sorts of backgrounds, because what someone might think as, of course I knew that, the other person says, I have no idea what this says, and it means nothing to me. So I think when you combine people like that, because what is your charge? Are you're interested yourselves and you want to advise maybe, the selectmen, but you also want to reach people. And, we were talking this morning that we had an educator come from the county who talked about sustainable gardening, and he's a horticulturist. But, we integrate his topic with our fertilizer rules, and why do we have our fertilizer rules? And we all hopefully get to a place of, everybody walked away learning a little something. You learned about different grasses that are sustainable and require less fertilizer. And, it's a component of what this committee is charged to do, to bring that message about proactive pollution prevention. If you don't pollute the water, you don't have to pay to clean it up. So it's a win-win situation. So how do we achieve these things? And not one person knows all those answers, so you have to just keep at the message, always.
So, all right, I see we're very, very close on to 4 o'clock, but I know that I had 2 more points of information that I wanted to mention before we close. And my 2 are, in the newspaper, it said that Eversource had agreed to move its power lines away from Cedar Pond over onto Locust Road, and this came out within the last week. And I say that's a very key piece of information, because we had to come up with an answer for Cedar Pond and an answer for what was going to happen for downtown sewering in Orleans before it was reasonable to think about what will our plan be for making Rock Harbor acceptable. And that's a good step. That's a good step. And I mean, there has been the discussion of, well, should we possibly reclassify Rock Harbor to a boat basin and deal with those rules opposed to the more stricter rules that apply for water bodies in the rest of the state? No, we're moving forward, and that's good, and it represents a lot of sweat from the folks
Just
down the
wonder
road
where the
here.
cormorants are gonna go.
I know where they're going.
All right.
Because we already have them over Little Depot Pond, and
All
the
right.
rest of them are coming.
Okay, and my last point is that what I'm reading from is a slide from
They've gotta go
the
somewhere.
Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel, and they're into the finance discussions of how they're going to finance it, the capital cost for all of the water treatment that they're coming up with. Case one way of doing it would be to put 100% on the tax rate. All right, that's one way of doing it. Case 2 is 50% on the tax rate, and 50% downtown area, and there would also be, for the minister's schoolhouse pond, which is getting its separate collection system, some kind
No,
of.
You mean that, it's not Minister's Schoolhouse, it's what's the
Meeting
one
House
they call?
Pond.
Yeah, Meeting
Excuse
House.
me, you're right.
Yeah.
I knew it was a house.
Meeting House
Sorry,
Pond is a separate piece of construction work, and they were saying, well, we would finance that by special assessment. All right, I'm just saying, okay, I've given you 2 cases. The third case is 20% tax rate, downtown 80% would be paying for itself. Meeting House Pond special assessment, and they've got split 50% downtown, and then they go into non-residential 30% downtown residential Meeting House Pond. They've got a computer that they can put the linear foot cost in of all of the pipes and the addresses of all the places that would be producing sewerage, and they can run the numbers and get from the computer what it costs. And in my way, when they get those numbers back, to me, it seems like, well, for these many people living in Orleans, this amount of money seems to be about right for how much, who pays for what. I'm impressed by their diligence and the fact that they will eventually be able to go to their public saying, okay, the computer said it's this if we do it this way, it's this if we do it that way, it's this if we do it some other way. So anyways, at that point, if no one else has anything more they want to talk about, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second that.
And seconded, yes. Thank you. We're adjourned. I'm assuming everybody voted for